Hey there, friends. Welcome to your extra credit discussion on Astrid's helmet. This one was a doozy. To save time, what I ended up doing was a lot of the templating and prototyping before we started filming. And that way, when we kicked off the video, I already had my patterns made. Usually I try and show the pattern making, but our schedule just did not fit up that way. And I figured, let's just roll with it. Of course, the patterns are free on our website, like most of the other ones that we have. This was the second attempt that I made. So I started making this pattern the same way I made the egg from Game of Thrones with a 3D model. I did a mock-up. Actually, I did a drawing, tried to figure out the shape of it from reference pictures. So we have all our reference pictures here. This is my first attempt, and then I printed out a side view of my head, and my second attempt that would actually fit on me. So I used this to help make that 3D model. I used Blender to make that. Really rough. I tried very hard to make it so that the pivot would work. So in the show, or in the movie, the bottom part goes up into the top part there, and then the top part rotates around the top of the head. It has to go a lot further up, though, kind of like that. So when Astrid has it on, she can have her face up, and then this comes down, that comes down, and that comes down like that. Now, obviously, that is not as streamlined as it could be. And I think that if I tinkered with it a bunch more, I could get it close, but the top part here and the dome here intersect, and they don't want to rotate anymore. I tried using a thinner foam on the mouth part. That kind of helped a little bit, but I think I would have to tinker with the placement of the pivot on all of the parts, and also potentially modify the design here to have a little more room on the top visor, or a little less mass on the top of the head part there. So definitely possible, but I got to a point where it was like, you know what, we gotta kick off this build and start going. So I decided to just make it all static. It does still fit on my head. I just gotta wedge it over my face. Like that. It just doesn't do that cool flippy up thing. But I imagine someone will take my patterns and make that work. I hope someone does anyway. I would love to see it. Mine's already done, and I'm not making another one. This video was sponsored by Plaid Crafts, which was really cool. We've never worked with them before. I guess they're trying to do more with cosplayers, which I think is fantastic. I would love to see more companies trying to cater their very useful products to the cosplay scene. The thing I was the most excited about, well, we use a lot of Mod Podge. We already know how awesome Mod Podge is, and we did some really fun stuff with that. So like the stippled texture on the back of here turned out really, really well. But the paints were the things that I was the most excited about, especially these color shift paints. We tried a bunch of different ones, did a ton of tests. I really, really do love how this, it's the blue flash paint that I made, how it looks in person. I'll be honest, it's very difficult to capture the effect on camera. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with having binocular vision, and my camera does not. But either way, in person, it's got this really, really great shimmer when you look around it, and you can still kind of see the different tones I put on all the scales here. So these ones were more purple, these ones were more blue, and then when the light goes across it, you get this really nice shimmer of purple over everything, kind of a metallic shimmer, which is super duper cool. Turned out pretty well, even though everything was just hand brushed on. At some point I would love to try and run these paints through my airbrush. And I want to tinker with some of the other colors, because this is like a blue-purple shift, but they have like red, yellow, orange shifts. They have like green and purple shifts. There's a bunch of different color shift paints that I want to try out. They also had a dragonfly glaze with a bunch of different color shift colors. Those were more glittery though. It still had a really cool shimmer. It just had those really large flakes in them, which is not what I wanted on this. But that's definitely something I'm gonna keep in the back of my head for a future project if I wanna take any base color of paint and add a sparkle to it. The glaze is, when it's wet, is white with glitter in it, and then when it dries clear, so you're just left with that glitter. So we got to experiment a whole bunch and learn a lot about some cool products from Plaid, and not only did we get a good finish on this one here, but I've got some really good ideas for the future. We have another plaid video coming up here pretty soon, and we're going to be using a lot of the same materials, but we also have a whole bunch more over here that I'm stoked to tinker with. As far as the helmet is concerned, I'm done with it. I'm not going to make the whole costume on this one. I have seen a lot of really great Astrid cosplayers. I've seen some other helmets which are really fantastic, but hopefully people who have already made their armor will see this and get to make a helmet for themselves too. I know that sometimes helmets can be the most challenging part. So I'm not going to dress up as Astrid, but maybe you will. Someone else will for sure. In fact, I've got a local friend in the Seattle area who has an Astrid costume. So maybe at some point we can get some photos of her wearing her costume with this helmet on her noggin. Another thing, this helmet is obviously sized for my head, and I have a fairly large noggin. The patterns that I'm giving out are sized for me, but I still have to tweak those files and get them uploaded today. But when I do, they'll have some instructions on there that'll say, here's my head circumference, and this is 100% scale. And if you are going to follow along at home, you could measure your head circumference and figure out proportionally how big your head is compared to mine, and then scale printing out your templates accordingly. That'll do it for this week's build. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes look at the build. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to get back to you. I hope you enjoyed the build. I hope you enjoyed this look behind the scenes, and I hope you're having a wonderful time on your projects, whether you're making a dragon helmet or a space gun or some really rad armor. Hope you're having a good time. Thanks again so much for the support, and thanks for hanging out. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We'll see you in the next one.